Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. This is Cars and Coffee. If you're listening to us live, it's on KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1. You can also listen to us on your favorite podcast networks, and of course, check us out on YouTube at The Speed Traveler. And Charlie, it's great to be in the studio with Kelly and myself, Chris Evertsen, and thrilled to be here, and it's a little bit of catch up for us.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've all three been in the studio. You had, did you actually have COVID?
I did.
Or I guess if you don't test, you don't have it, right?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I had the flu.
Yeah. But Chris has missed a couple weeks. Kelly, I think you've been here. Actually, I was a little sick about 2 weeks ago, and I still kind of have a cough hanging on, but I'm feeling
Stay
a lot better.
Stay away from me. Use your own microphone, please.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're new to the Speed Traveler Roadshow, we take a chance on Saturday mornings, or actually not just Saturday mornings live, but you can catch up with all the episodes at the Speed Traveler page on YouTube. But we look at classic cars, we talk F1, we talk about which classic cars and exotic cars are going up in value. And we have a lot of fun talking about fun things you can do with your car.
Yeah, it's great to get out on the road and have some fun. Of course, it's always great listening to Kelly and have her tell us about her car news and racing news, especially from her perspective, because being a younger woman, you know, we're cranky old men. I got my golden rake chasing kids off my yard. So it's great having Kelly's perspective on all that stuff as well. So it's a nice balance.
Yeah, it's a great balance. And like I said, if you're new to the show, we'd love to have you here. You can reach out to us on YouTube. Actually, we did have some people reach out to us, Chris, and they were asking to kind of revisit some of the car marques we've covered this year. Usually each show has its own featured marque. Like last week it was Lotus, and it's Porsche, and it's Mercedes. It could be Ferrari. But this show we're going to do a little bit of review of all those marques this year.
Oh, great. That's great.
So we're going to talk.
I know what I'm going to talk about then. What are you going to talk about?
I know what I'm going to talk about, but you are going to have to come back for segment C for that. We are going to talk a little bit of news to start the day. Then we're going to come back, talk about some fun things you can do with your car. After that, we're going to come back a little bit later and talk about our picks for cars and future collector cars. And then we're going to wrap it all up with some talk about fun trips we've taken and a little F1 news. But with that, our first feature is F1 and car news. And Kelly, what do you have for us?
Well, it's the U.S. Grand Prix coming up this weekend. Very exciting. It's at COTA. And I just was going to talk about people's picks. Of course, Max is a favorite, but it's interesting because they have McLaren for 2 and 3. They think it's going to be Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. And I found that really interesting. They put them above Ferrari and above Mercedes.
That's really interesting. You know, I mean, I'm not surprised by that pick, Kelly, because obviously the McLaren did fantastic at the last race in Qatar, or Cater, or however you call it, Cutter. You know, well, for me, Cutter is a bunch of cyclists out of Indiana, but that's an entirely different story altogether. But, you know, I love what McLaren has done. And you know what? You didn't even mention Aston Martin. Are they so far off the path? I mean, have they gone so far backwards that they're no longer really in contention for what we'll really call third place in the Drivers' Championship?
I mean, I think I was seeing everything. Everyone's all about right now. They're all about McLaren. They're all about Ferrari right now as well, and Mercedes. Those guys are all staying at the front. Red Bull, of course, is like number 1, and then those guys are kind of fighting for second and third. But it's crazy because a lot of the other teams have kind of become less relevant right now, I would say, honestly.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. Fernando Alonso, the start of the year, I think he was on the podium for basically every race.
Yeah, the first five, six, 7 races. Yeah.
But they've definitely been passed up by McLaren. Our buddy Zach Brown, who we have to get on the show one of these days. Zach Brown's the team principal for McLaren. What an incredible job those guys have done. And how cool would it be? They're getting closer. The last race, which was, as you said, the Grand Prix of Qatar, they were within 8 seconds. I mean, it's not 30 seconds like it's been in the past with all the other brands. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Could they do it?
You know, honestly, anything can happen at the start. And Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are definitely hard chargers. We saw what happened at the beginning of Qatar, where the Mercedes kind of took each other out. I mean, they would have been in contention for that second and third spot that ultimately the McLarens got. Unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton, who's sitting third in the championship points, went out on lap 1 with contact with George Russell. So, I mean, did we see the true pace of Mercedes in the race at Qatar? Are they going to be up there competing with McLaren? You know, it's going to be a challenge, Kelly. I'm curious. You know, I mean, I feel it's going to be tight. I feel that battle for the second team, if you will, but depending on what Perez does. You know, Sergio Perez has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's struggled. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, Perez has really been struggling all
Poor
year.
Perez.
Yeah,
they didn't even put him. And I was looking at the picks, and it's funny because it goes Red Bull, but just Max. And then they say McLaren, but then they put Piastri and they put Lando Norris. So they didn't put them both, though.
And it's almost a home Grand Prix. I mean, after this weekend, they're going to Mexico, and that is Perez's home Grand Prix. He is the mega superstar of Mexico right now, like probably the biggest sports figure in their country by a long shot. So a lot of Mexican fans are coming up to the U.S. Grand Prix at Austin. And man, he just needs to put it together. He's been weak the last 10 races.
I don't know if it's because he's pushing so hard and he's making mistakes, or if the car just suits Max so much more than it does suit Sergio's driving style.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, Charlie, and I agree with you, Kelly. It's like, I mean, it's odd that he's not even on the pick chart, because that is the best car in the field.
It really isn't. That's a good point you brought up with the car not being made for him. It's like the old Michael Schumacher era. The car was always built by Ferrari for Michael Schumacher, and it was tough for the second driver to ever show any space because they built it to how Michael likes to drive the car. Like just even between you and us, Chris and I raced the U.S. Touring Car Championship, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But we just came home with the victory you did at the last race and the championship. And it is, you know, there's definitely a different style to both. You like the car a little looser than I like it. And so all these cars have been built to Max Verstappen specs, and it probably has something to do with Perez not being so quick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you know what I also liked about Qatar is, Toto Wolff was not at the race, the director of Mercedes.
What?
He was at the beach in Ibiza or in his home studio, but he was watching the race, and I thought it was hilarious because during the race, the guys that were commentating on the race mentioned that he wasn't there. And that he was off at doing something fun, and like moments later, they had to cut to him doing a radio message to, I think it was George Russell, to just stay sharp and focused after the turn 1 incident.
Oh my goodness.
So he was totally watching, had all his data, wherever he was in the world. So I thought that was really, really cool. From a technical aspect, and also Toto just saying, no, I'm here and I'm paying attention.
Oh yeah, he'll always be there. He's always around. I love Toto, though. He's great.
They plug him in remotely. It's pretty incredible. Like through satellite or whatever. He's instantaneously plugged in for all the pit decisions and to speak to the drivers. Pretty cool technology.
Pretty cool. So, you know what? Maybe we should actually go for our picks in the United States Grand Prix taking place at COTA this weekend.
Or, you know what? Why don't we have our listeners wait for that to the end of the show? Going to make you listen to the whole show before we come up with our picks.
While you're listening to us, why don't you message us and tell us who your picks are? And maybe we'll figure out a competition or a prize or something like that.
Yeah, but we're going to come back we're going to bookend the show with F1 talk at the start, little F1 talk at the end. And it's exciting weekend because it's U.S. Grand Prix. We're going to come back to that. But Chris, we're going to talk a little bit about some of our favorite picks for cars. I believe we're going to take a quick break and come back with that. So if you are listening to us live, you are listening on KHTS Radio, AM 1220, and also on the Speed Traveler page on YouTube. We'll be right back with some picks of our favorite cars.
All right, well, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow, Cars and Coffee Edition. If you're listening to us live on KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1. Of course, we're always available 24/7 on your favorite podcast network and our YouTube channel at the Speed Traveler. And Charlie, this is kind of exciting news. We're going to do a car rally.
Yeah, we have plans right now to do a car rally. It's a big undertaking, but it would be to retrace the steps of the movie Vacation and the mythical trip that they took. Actually, I don't believe they took it. They did go to some of those locations. They didn't take the actual trip. But I'm sure some people did take that actual trip.
Well, what's really cool is, it starts in Chicago, but it culminates here in Southern California at Wally World. But there's some iconic locations here in Southern California that are part of that movie because, almost all movies were in that era were made in California. When did that come out? 1980?
I'm going to double check. I think it came out in 1980, actually.
That's what I think. It was
double
1980.
check it right now.
But if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go see it. There's a series of additional vacation movies, European Vacation and what have you. Stars Chevy Chase at the helm of that one. One of our favorite comedic actors.
1983.
1983. All right. Well, that's a big year for movies. 1983.
It sure was. And shot during 1982. They went to a lot of places along the route between Chicago and Los Angeles.
So, and speaking of Los Angeles, we had an event we were working a couple weeks ago, and you were able to make a couple preemptive stops on your way.
I did. I think what helped spark this idea was I was driving to meet Chris at the Orange County International Auto Show where we had a booth, and we were doing some test drives and having some fun down there. And I was driving in horrible traffic on the 5 freeway south. If you don't know Los Angeles, between LA and Anaheim, it's only about 35 miles, but it could take 2 hours. So I had a lot of coffee that morning, and I needed to take a quick 30-second break. And so I pulled over and I found a hotel because this is a Speed Traveler pro tip. You never use a gas station bathroom if you can help it. Yeah. Always look for hotels. That's the best place to use the bathroom. They're always nice and clean, especially if they have like a little convention room next to it. It's always extra clean.
Always going to be clean.
But so I got off the freeway.
That is definitely a Speed Traveler pro tip.
Yeah, exactly. Using I think the dirtiest bathroom, not that we want to get off on this tangent, I've ever seen was on Alameda Boulevard in downtown Los Angeles. I don't think the gas station or the place had been cleaned in 75 years. So yeah, look for a hotel when you need to stop for a bathroom break. It's also good if you've got older people traveling with you or kids. But so I stopped at the Hotel Saddleback in a little town called Norwalk. And if you're from Los Angeles, Norwalk is pretty famous because it's where all the records are stored. So you go there for your birth certificate. So I stopped this little town and I was rushing to the bathroom, our little hotel, the Saddleback Inn. And I walked by and I swore I saw a picture of Christy Brinkley and Chevy Chase. And so as I'm walking to the bathroom, I'm like, God, that's so weird. Like, does Best Western hire someone that looks like Chevy Chase? I'm like, it really couldn't be Chevy Chase. It's got to be some random actor. Like there's always those dumb pictures of like families jumping in the pool and having fun, like when you're at a Best Western or something like that.
Any hotel with a pool.
So on my way back from the bathroom, I stopped and took a closer look, and it turns out that's where they filmed the famous scene in the movie Vacation where Christy Brinkley jumps in the pool. And Chevy Chase jumps in right after her and then screams because the water's so cold and wakes up the entire hotel. So it was supposed to be in the middle of the desert at a motel in Arizona. It turns out it was shot right here in Norwalk, California at the Saddleback Hotel. And it was just so cool. Like nothing had changed. There's a big poster on the wall. It says, on this location in 1982, the movie Vacation was filmed with Chevy Chase and Christy Brinkley. And there was a bunch of pictures. It was really cool. Like, it was a big surprise. I walked outside and the pool was identical to how it was in 1983. It just hadn't changed.
That's just amazing. Now, I know you sent me some photos and I was like shocked because I was instantly brought back to that scene.
Right.
How can you not be brought back to a scene where Christy Brinkley is in a bikini? Just an amazing looking woman. And of course, Chevy Chase, just absolutely stunning in a bathing suit.
Right, exactly. Not to be sexist. Chevy Chase looks amazing in his underwear.
But it looked identical. So we'll have to post some pictures. We'll have those up on the website, on the YouTube page and the website, I guess. But it looked identical.
Yeah,
like you said, they didn't change a thing.
Yeah.
So,
and it sparked an idea for us to do a cross-country rally. There's a lot of fans of Vacation. If you go on YouTube and you put in YouTube filming locations, it's amazing. Or the iconic family truckster.
The truckster, which I believe one of the versions of that, I think they made 3 for the movie, just rolled across one of the auction house blocks, Barrett Jackson, didn't it?
Mecum. I'm not sure which it was. It's funny. I did a little research. It wasn't even an original. It was a tribute.
It was a yeah.
And it sold for over $100,000. I mean, how great is that? It had Aunt Edna's dead body.
Yeah, the rolled up carpet.
Yeah, the rolled up carpet that appears to be Aunt Edna on the roof.
And there was a leash on the bumper.
So for those of you who haven't, I can't imagine anyone listening to Cars and Coffee on Saturday morning in Newhall hasn't seen the movie Vacation. But if you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to watch. What a great road trip movie. I mean, maybe one other than perhaps the Cannonball Run and a few of those other ones.
There's some great road trip movies that we'll definitely have to emulate, but we're going to start our first movie themed road trip will be Vacation.
Yeah.
And if you want to get more information on our vacation road trip, please message us on our social media. Also, you know what? I mean, I know some of our friends that are gonna get into this. They're gonna start building cars or finding cars that are kind of matched to it. I mean,
absolutely.
It's gonna be kind of a crazy thing, like 24 Hours of Lemons, where people do crazy stuff with their cars. I think we're gonna see we might see a little of that with this one. I mean, there's only a few cars you can really choose for this one. It's not like Gumball Rally or something like that. Right.
No, I agree. There's a family truckster. There's the Ferrari 308. But you could do it in any car. I think that would be the fun. We're gonna have we'll have a little banner on the side of the car on each car, or some decals, so everyone knows who's in the rally. We may or may not have someone in a Ferrari racing around, jumping in pools with people. But that's what the Speed Traveler is all about. It's all about having fun with your cars. And there's just not enough of that these days.
No, I mean, we talk about this loosely on a lot of our other shows, especially with Kelly. All the new hybrid cars, the electric cars, hydrogen, all the different types of fuels and things that we don't even know about that are being developed right now.
Right.
It's like, where's it all going to go? And what really seems to be getting lost is that road trip mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're from. We're both from different sides, but we agree on the same thing. I mean, the car is being made out to be the big villain in the world. And it's really what paved the way for this country to become what it is.
I mean, it's all, what was it, 1955 with the Eisenhower Highway Act, and it opened up so many doors. The road trip, the ability to explore. We no longer had to do it with horse and buggy. We could do it on these perfectly smooth concrete paths.
Absolutely. And the mass expansion, like to the West Coast, was all fueled by the auto industry.
Yeah. So
I just don't get the automobile and having fun in your car. I mean, it seems pretty simple, and there is some carbon footprint to it, but there's a carbon footprint to everything.
Exactly. I mean, I really would like to encourage folks to get back out in their car, on their bicycle, on their motorcycle, heck, even trains. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Road tripping, can be done in a variety of ways. Obviously, we prefer the car, and there's some great roads. I don't care what town, what city, what state you're in. We can expand outward like that. But there's just so many great roads right around here. And we're going to talk about some of one of those in a little bit.
Yeah, in our last segment, we're going to talk a little bit about Highway 2, which is Angeles Crest Highway in the Los Angeles area. It's just above Pasadena. But yeah, getting back to, just to wrap up a little on that sentiment, Chris, is that, I thought you and I and a few of our buddies were the only ones that really saw that the automobile is being made out to be the villain now, and the push for all electric cars. I mean, you're not going to be able to make the cross country trips as easily with all electric cars, and there's lots of other opportunities for different alternative fuels. And, if you like the sound of a combustion engine, I mean, who wants that to be, that's a liberty, I think, that all Americans enjoy. And who wants that to be mandated out?
Right. I'm all for all these, new ideas. I'm all for looking at better ways to treat the environment and all this great stuff. But I feel strongly that at least in my lifetime, the combustion engine will not go away. And honestly, I hope it doesn't ever go away, because it is such a utilitarian, easy to manipulate, easy to maintain.
Yep.
I mean, especially an older analog engine, if you
Sure.
will, something you might find in a VW Bug or even a BMW E46. It's kind of an analog
Right.
system.
Yeah.
You got computers in the E46, but not like they are today.
Yeah.
Today they're driving laptops.
Right. Yeah. And we're definitely not political, but it just seems like someone needs to be an advocate for the combustion engine and for automobiles. And there's lots of different ways they can do it in the future. Perhaps it's the algae fuel that they're developing, some of the
Corn.
big oil companies. We've got corn, you've got, like you mentioned, hydrogen, stuff like that. So there's carbon capture devices that are similar to the old smog devices. Smog devices it's like a 50-year-old, 60-year-old technology, but carbon capture device is something that's new and that could really sort of save the industry.
What's funny is it's not even new. Carbon capture has been a part of big industry in other countries. I mean,
Right.
for an example, Switzerland, they burn everything down. They keep burning it down, and they capture all of that stuff. And I don't know what the tonnage is, but they take tons of trash, they burn it down into small cubes of carbon dust.
Right.
And none of it goes into the atmosphere. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Switzerland's air is so pristine. So lots of different ways to do things.
Agree.
Again, I'm not going to get on my political soapbox here because
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against the battery.
Right.
I'm not against the battery.
Exactly.
But I'm also not for disposing of the combustion engine.
For sure. And we certainly have hit a nerve. So we're going to talk about it a lot more. And if you are interested in this subject, hit us up on Instagram at The Speed Traveler, hit us up on YouTube. And we're definitely going to bring in some guests and explore alternative fuels and keeping the combustion engine alive.
Absolutely. Sounds good. What's up for our next then? What are we going to talk in our next segment,
All
Charlie?
right. We are going to come back for Block C, and we are going to
look at
talk
that.
about some picks Chris and I have for future collectors. A couple of our top, usually we have a featured marque on the Speed Traveler Roadshow, but we're going to come back and talk about some of our favorite picks. And then come back in our final segment with a little F1 news and a little road trip news. So thanks for listening. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow on KHTS Radio and on your podcast networks all across the world.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. This is the Cars and Coffee edition. If you're listening to us live on Saturday morning, it's KHTS AM 1220 and FM 98.1. Of course, available on all your podcast networks and our YouTube channel at the Speed Traveler 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And Charlie, in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some of our favorite cars, not our absolute favorite cars, but two of our favorite marques and cars, and how to kind of find them and acquire them.
Yeah. You know what? This is our segment on looking for classic cars and collector cars. I mean, there's some newer cars that I would consider classics or collectors that are going up in value. And we always talk about on the Speed Traveler here is we have made a lot of mistakes buying cars. We've had home runs where we've killed it buying cars, but we've also made a lot of mistakes. So we like to share with our listeners things to look out for and traps that are out there that you want to try and avoid. And so this segment's all about future collector cars. And, I'm going to start right off with a few of the ones that I really like. And one is the 1985 or newer Porsche 928. That is a car that was always a little bit of the stepchild, to the 911. It was originally intended to replace the 911, and Porsche just realized at some point that wasn't going to happen, because it was a whole different experience. It was a grand touring experience versus a mid-engine or rear-engine Porsche traditional experience. But
yeah, it definitely kind of diverged a little bit from that 911 mystique that is going strong today. But if I'm not mistaken, you actually had one of those in the late 90s.
I had a 968, which is the giant. You pointed out it was a 3-liter 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
So it had some giant cylinders in there.
Made no sense, but
And now that you brought that up, those cars, the 968s, were only built from 1992 to 1995. But man, those cars are starting to go up, and they're fun little car.
Yeah, who doesn't like a sporty little Porsche? It doesn't matter which one you climb into. They're always a lot of fun. I mean, one that I always feel is underrated is the Boxster that was developed or put to market in the early 2000s up to, I think, the last year.
Well, it's still going,
but they changed it a lot. New generation.
Yeah.
And I think it's up to, I think it was
2016.
2016 was the model I really
2016. Liked. And, that was really one of my next picks. But before we jump off the 928, I think just the one point I want to make on the 928 is, I like the 1985 and newer because they switched to the 5-liter motor, and it's a faster car. It's 300 plus horsepower. And if you could find the later like S4 versions, I mean, the GTS is like the unicorn that was made the last few years. In a manual, it's really hard to find those. And
those will be a lot more expensive.
They are, but you can still find S4s out there in the mid to late 80s, and those aren't bad at all. You can find those for about $50,000. I saw one last night. I believe it was a 928 S4. It was an 88. And it had a decent amount of miles on it. It had about 75,000 miles on it, but you could find them for 50,000. And we always talk about manuals versus automatics. I mean, it was kind of a luxury car, so automatics were important and people seemed to like them in the day. But man, we always say here on the Speed Traveler, if you can deal with a manual, that's the way to go.
Yeah, find that manual. And you started off this segment with talking about the mistakes we've made, and we've made a lot of mistakes, but nowadays there's great programs like at Haggerty's. I want to talk about Haggerty's because they can help you not make a lot of the mistakes we've made. They can it might help you track down cars. If you look at Haggerty's, they'll give you like a range of what cars are worth, how many are on the market, like the 928 you're talking about, how many of those are on the market, what their approximate values are, and where they're located. And Haggerty's is a really nice tool to utilize to help not make some of those mistakes that we've made in the past.
Yeah, you just have to sign up use your email and set up a password. I think
it's free, right?
It's free. And if you don't do it, I think you only get five cracks at the valuation tool. But that's a really good point, Chris. Haggerty's an exceptional company that really is into classic cars, and they have that incredible value price guide. And so you can put in your car, you can put in the features, and you could see what your car has been fetching on the open market.
But that's today. I mean, that's what it's fetching today. It's not looking at what it might be worth tomorrow or the next day. And that's more of what we kind of look at.
Exactly.
But Haggerty's really kind of pinpoints on where it is right now.
Yeah, and that's good though, because you can, if you're going to go out, let's say, for instance, we're talking about a Porsche 928, 1985 or newer, you really need to do your homework. I mean, that's the first mistake I think we used to make is we just jump in with 2 feet.
It's like, oh boy.
Yeah,
kind of like Chevy Chase jumping into a swimming pool.
Yeah. With Christy Brinkley.
I mean, Mr. Griswold.
Yeah, exactly. But if you got to do your homework, but that's half the fun is that you really dive deep on Haggerty. You can find similar cars that are for sale. You can find the price guide, and it's just a great way to do your research before you jump in. Then you'll have an idea. Then you might, you could use Haggerty, or you can use Car Gurus, or you can use Auto Trader Classics. But you might also want to check out Craigslist. We always talk about finding a car on Craigslist.
Yeah, and it's all of these, and you're bringing up a good point. Use all the tools. Don't just use one tool.
Right.
I mean, Haggerty's really allows you to dive deep into it.
Right.
Craigslist doesn't do that, but you can also see where stuff is available nationwide.
Yep.
That's maybe not being showcased on Haggerty's.
Right. And in the old days, they didn't. When you search for cars, you could go. For instance, if you're in Los Angeles, you go on Los Angeles, search for cars for sale. And then there's a menu bar on your far left. If you pull it to the bottom, it says use map, and you can expand the map to basically the whole US if you want.
It's pretty impressive.
And that's
it's really
a new
cool
feature that never had that. So back in the day, Chris and I would have to go through each area, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and it was a lot harder to find those hidden gems.
Yeah. And you also didn't get maybe real information and data on that car.
Right.
I mean, we recently bought a car that we thought was pristine, and the Carfax was actually clean, but it clearly had a pretty solid front end damage.
Yeah, that's true.
Front left damage.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to talk about that car because it kind of angers me at the moment, but it will be an episode coming up for certain.
Yeah. Back to a couple of our picks. So that, yeah, you mentioned the Porsche 19, we'll get off that quickly. 1985 or newer, we like. The 2016, you brought up, I think by accident, the Boxster Spider.
Yeah.
But the 2016, if you're in the market, if you've got 90 grand to kill, that is an amazing car.
Is that where they are now?
They started out about that price. They never really came down. And I think they're only going to go up because they look, like a Speedster, a 911 Speedster. They're the last of the real feel with, I believe it's the 3.8 engine and the manual gearbox. And so, there's a limited number of them. They look incredible. And, if you've got that type of money, that's only going to go up.
And, as from a driving perspective, they're a little easier to drive than, say, a 911 because it is that mid-rear engine platform. So the car is a little bit more balanced. I mean, you Porsche owners that have 911s, you kind of might remember if you're at speed and you've got any steering input in at all and you get off the accelerator, that back end wants to become the front end very, very quickly. You have to really drive the car, which we love. The Boxster kind of balances that out a little bit more. And it makes it a really stable and a lot of fun to drive.
Yeah. So the 2016 Porsche Boxster Spider, there's also a 2021 version, and there's a 2012 and 2011 version that are a little less expensive. But before we bounce off of this segment, Chris, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention one of your favorite cars in the world.
Yes.
That is the BMW E46 M3 from the, I believe it's 99 to 2004 era.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we just looked on Car Gurus and we found about 67 of them on the market right now. And they're all about in that $35,000 to $59,000, $60,000 price range. And it's an awesome car. I mean, it's available in a manual transmission. Again, I spoke to the analog aspect of the car. It still has an ECU unit in there. There's two versions of that. And you can really tune the car that way, but it's still an analog car, an analog feel. You can shut off the ABS braking.
Right.
You can shut off the traction control.
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of fun with that car.
Such a great car. And also you mentioned some of those prices. I mean, those are really pristine versions. You can find them as low as $17,000, $18,000 if you're okay with some more miles.
Right. And mileage is always the thing there. And here's the thing, though. The one thing you got to watch out for the M3s is usually they were purchased by someone that's really going to drive the car. Yeah. So really do your research.
Absolutely.
Don't get suckered into what looks like a great deal because we did that with an E36. We thought we had a great deal on one, and it was a good deal until we had to start replacing everything on it. And then we replaced everything, and it was an amazing car. Yeah. I mean, it was a great rebuild, but there's an expense to that. And if you don't want to spend all the money on the M3, get the 330i.
Yeah.
It's a great car. You get you can get the M packages on there. It comes with that. You have a little bit less horsepower, but not by much. And it actually makes a much easier day-to-day driver because the tires are a little bit narrower. So for city driving and for city use, you can really have a lot of fun with that car. And by the way, there's a huge racing series out there, the Spec E46 series.
Right.
You can really go out there, put the wood to these cars, and have a great time on the track.
Yeah, it's a great platform. That's a good point. The E46 platform, the 330 version, that's a great car in a manual. We always say, manual's definitely going to have more value down the road because we're going to, they're not going to be any more manuals at some point, and there's not going to be any more combustion engines at some point. We hope that is a long time away, but it is kind of where we're headed.
All right. What are we missing? Did we talk about everything in that segment?
I think we did, though. I just wanted to drop in a quick honorable mention of the 2006 to 2008 Z4 M Roadster and Coupe. Those are great cars. The shoe, what's it called? The flying shoe. The 99 version of that car. The prices have gone absolutely crazy, but the 06 to 08 BMW Z4 M coupes are about as low as they're going to go, and they're just about to start coming back.
Awesome car, fun to drive, top up, 50-50 weight balance, just like almost every single BMW out there. Put the top down, it shifts that weight to the back. And boy, it really is that street car kind of wild west kind of show out there with the top down. It's a lot of fun to have the wind in the air ripping up the coast.
Yeah, that's
PCH or something like that. Yeah. Definitely a great road trip car.
All right. Well, we are going to come back for our last segment. We're going to talk about a fun trip we took recently and talk a lot of F1. We got the United States Grand Prix coming up this weekend.
And a little bit of our stuff.
And a little bit of our racing. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're listening to the Speed Traveler Road Show on KHTS Radio Also, you can find us on all of your podcast platforms, and also on our YouTube page, The Speed Traveler. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. This is the Cars and Coffee edition. If you're listening to us live Saturday morning, KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1, and of course, available on all your favorite podcast networks and our YouTube channel.
Yeah, our YouTube channel, The Speed Traveler. You can see all the episodes there. In the last 10 episodes, we've covered, done buyer's guides for Ferrari, for Porsche, for Lotus, for Corvette. So if you're in the market for one of those cars, it behooves you to go back and listen to the show.
And we're going to get right into, something a little bit near and dear to our hearts, our racing series that we've been participating in this entire year, the United States Touring Car Championship. And Charlie, it went our way this year.
Yeah.
We've struggled for the last, for 4 years now. We've been struggling. And this year, it wasn't easy, but we put it together.
No, we finally put it together. If you're not familiar, we race in the U.S. Touring Car Championship. It's a combination of all sorts of sports cars. There's BMWs out there. There's some Audis out there. There's Hondas, lots of Hondas, and Acuras out there. And it's a series that runs in support, some places to IndyCar and to NASCAR. Really fun series. I mean, there's also weekends where we race in front of 12 people and 13 crickets.
Oh, that many crickets.
Yeah. But we finally, after 4 years of trying, put together the championship winning season. Chris, you actually carried the load for the whole year. I think you did six of the races. I only did one. So,
yeah, but you won the season opener. We had a good battle. There was a big field.
Battle. Yeah, there was a big field. It was in Las Vegas. So that we were driving a Honda S2000 at the time. And so it was a good way to start the season. It put us on the right track of winning. And then you bookended the season with a big victory and a hard-fought victory at Buttonwillow Raceway.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun because, the last race of the season, a lot of the drivers kind of say, okay, I'm not in the championship. So they pass on that and save that money for off-season development, which makes a lot of sense. But the contenders are still there. So the race was still on for the championship. And, I was able to get pole, which was great. I was very, very conservative at the start. I actually had to really focus on just driving the car, not racing the car. I get very, I get very excited and I want to win and I want to get to the front the red mist shows up and I want to do quali laps every single lap.
Right. Yeah.
And, but it was a consistent race. I feel like I drove as calm, cool, and collected as I could.
Yeah.
We got the victory and we got the championship.
Yeah, it was so nice to win the championship. And, some of our partners along the way, Blender Sunglasses helped us a lot. And as did El Bandito Yankee Tequila.
Yeah. You know what? The post-party festivities were fantastic. El Bandito Yankee came out in true form and tequila shots around the horn for everybody. Of course, El Bandito Yankee always says, drive responsible, drink responsibly, don't drive drunk.
Right.
And so we're really appreciative of that and their support for us this entire year, and it's been super exciting. And I'm really glad because we were able to create a new partnership later in the season with Garagistic, and they're really going to help us develop either our current car or a new car coming up for the 2024 season. So a lot of good news coming out of that with Garagistic and the Speed Traveler United States Touring Car Championship.
Yeah,
cars.
also our buddies over at Belade, which is a S2000. My car is a Honda S2000. Chris's is a BMW M3. But the Blade guys came on and helped us with some transmission issues we were having. And they've been fantastic. I knew it was the right place when I pulled up and there was 5 S2000s parked in front of it.
When do you see 5 S2000s parked anywhere that's not an S2000 club? Yeah, and Belade Sports, they did a great job. They helped us with the intake, and they're currently doing a lot of work. We have a couple transmissions that they're working on. So we're really excited about the partnership with Belade Sports and Garagistic. So it's going to be 2024 is going to be an exciting season for our racing.
It should be great. All right. Well, now going from U.S. Touring Car Championship, we're going to talk F1. We're actually not going for once. Usually we go to the U.S. Grand Prix, but this weekend is the United States Grand Prix at COTA, Circuit of the Americas. And we talked F1 a little bit earlier. We talked about some of our picks coming up, and man, McLaren's killing it right now.
Yeah, they really are. Zach Brown's got that ship, righted and running strong. They're full steam ahead. Full hybrid engine ahead.
Right, exactly.
And it's really exciting to see what's going on there. I mean, Zach's got a lot of stuff happening in the IndyCar world as well. But with COTA coming up, I mean, it's a big race. We talked about Sergio Perez needing to recover.
And he has so many of his fans coming across the border from Mexico to watch at this race.
Yeah, I should give him some coaching on how to enter this race. Be calm, cool, and collected. Right. Don't let that red mist, veil your eyes.
Yeah, but you know what? You bring up a good point. And if you watch a lot of F1, Max Verstappen's been almost unstoppable, and his teammate Perez has been. I don't know, for whatever reason, I like Perez. He's a cool dude and he's always smiling, and he just hasn't been on point. So what I was getting at is that Max, it's 2 against 1. If the McLarens are at the front, they've got Piastri and they also have Norris, and they can, one of them can take a shot at Max right at the start while the other one hangs back a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And mixing strategies. COTA's a track where it's a hard track. Right. It's a challenging track to drive. I don't care if you're walking it on, or you're on a bicycle, or if you're whatever car you're in, especially in an F1 car. I mean, there is some technical aspects of that track that are incredibly challenging. Right. So, a red flag is you are not, hopefully not a red flag, but a safety car situation is definitely not out of the realm of possibility, which leads to varying pit strategies. Yeah. And I'm guessing it'll probably be a 2-stop race, depending on heat. I don't know what the temperatures are like right now in Austin. Right. But if it's hot, it might be a 3-stop strategy. I mean, Pirelli has mandated, they mandated in Qatar with the really cutter. Right. Pick your version. They mandated a lap count on what they could do, how many laps they could do on their tires. It didn't matter which version, whether it was the intermediate, the mid, whatever. It didn't matter. It wasn't red, yellow, or white. It didn't matter. It was 18 laps. But that was kind of interesting because it didn't seem to matter if it was the really soft tire or the really hard tire. That might play into what's happening in COTA. Yeah, and the McLarens were closer. Every race, Max has smoked everyone, been 30 seconds ahead. He was only 8 seconds ahead at the end of this race. We didn't mention Mercedes at all. Lewis Hamilton loves this track. Yes, former winner. His years of dominance, he killed it at this track. And George Russell has been driving well. If they can avoid running into each other, they might be a factor. Well, they should be a factor because they definitely showed pace at Qatar. They were fast. In qualifying in the practice sessions. They look good. I think there's a newfound focus. George Russell is definitely hungry. He wants to push forward. Right. But it's also really, really important for Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he's currently sitting in 3rd place, just a few points ahead of Fernando Alonso. I'm not sure what the gap is. It's pretty tight. But it's tight up there. And with Lewis's DNF last week, he lost a lot. Even though Alonso only scored a couple points. Right. The gap was closed. So the battle for that 3rd spot is on. And it also, spot, really. It's Perez is a little bit out of reach if he can get it together. 30 points ahead. So he should, I would hope that Perez can make that recovery. But if he doesn't, 2nd place in the championship is up for grab. And it doesn't include, it doesn't exclude the McLarens and other drivers. Yeah. The Ferraris are right there. Right now, Carlos Sainz I think he's sitting 5th in the championship. I'll have to double check that. Ahead of his teammate, Charles Leclerc. And, Carlos Sainz more so than Charles Leclerc has a points chance to really move forward in the next couple races to battle for that, I'll call 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. I think, that it's interesting. The Ferrari's been really quick in a straight line. It's going to be really quick in Mexico. I don't know if there's enough straightaway, for the Ferrari to shine at COTA, but let's see. Who knows? They Ferrari surprised us before. They have. And so, they may have enough pace. I think they're going to be good at Mexico for sure with the long straights. There are some long straights at COTA. Yeah, that back straight off the hairpin's pretty long. Yeah, it's long. And it starts from a dead zero. Yeah. It's a very, it's the slowest speed turn. So they're going to get on the power quickly. Yeah. So they should be pretty good. I'm curious. That kind of brings up the strategy question. Are they going to go lower downforce, higher downforce? Right. They can do a lot of things to the car to make it work better. If you give up the downforce, though, those first few turns after turn 1, that series of S's is super challenging, and
Yeah.
it's constantly tightening up. So it's, you're trying to go as fast as you can, but
it
you
gets
have
tighter
to
and tighter.
slow down. It gets tighter and tighter. So
yeah, I mean, I think they could be in trouble this weekend because there's 20 turns at the
Yeah.
Coda circuit. A lot of them are high speed, and they're going to need downforce, and that's not really Ferrari's specialty.
No. It's going to be exciting. And, honestly, Lando Norris are doing great with McLaren, and Oscar Piastri is showing such great maturity. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. All the drivers. I mean, it's going to be an exciting race. It's
Yeah.
the U.S. Grand Prix. It's Texas. Everything is big in Texas.
Right.
This is a big event.
It is, and that leads us to our picks for the race. I'm going to let you start with your pick.
Oh, geez. Thank you so much. I'm going on a limb. I'm going to go George Russell.
Oh, wow. That's a good pick. I'm actually going to go with Lando Norris. I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's the easy pick is Max Verstappen, but I just don't know what's going to happen. But
Yeah. Well, you know what? We should actually let's put this to our viewers, okay? And you can pick Max Verstappen.
yeah,
You can pick, but who's next? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
unless
Who's
Max
after Max?
Verstappen, unless he makes a mistake, which I doubt he does,
Right.
unless he gets crashed out, which is very possible. That battle for